have to win the whole state. You only got to win your little area. So that was really smart. Actually, check out. We are live right now, and I know my volume's a little bit low. Try to get a little bit closer to the mic. Yeah, I don't want to have the feedback and stuff. But actually, just so you know, folks, I'm here with someone very special. This is actually my first and my favorite so far candidate of the year. I do have activist of the year going back like a couple years before that, but Geoff Young definitely stood out. As you know, I have more candidate interviews in the 22 election cycle than any other YouTuber. And, I also ran the independent third-party candidate forums here in New York City in 2021. I've talked to a lot of candidates, and really Geoff Young stood out to me in so many ways, and I've been meaning to catch back up with him. Unfortunately, he's all the way in Kentucky. I'm all the way in New York, so our paths don't cross as often as I would like. But I'm so excited to have him back here. Actually, once again, I interviewed over, I think, 30 candidates from across the nation, all the different parties. Geoff Young, out of all of them, stood out to me as my number one pick for all the candidates in the nation running for any position in 2022. So, well, once again, congratulations. Now, one of the things that really elevated him was the way that he was taking on Democratic Party leadership and the way that he actually battled for year after year, campaign after campaign. And they tried everything to keep this man off of the, from winning the primary, but he won it anyways, yeah? So,
Yeah,
tell
one
us.
time, 2022, I won one primary, and
Yeah.
I was amazed.
Yeah, and they hated you so much that even after you won, you were elected by the people. What fun, they did all kinds of funny stuff. They didn't endorse you. They tried to cut you down. Tell
Yeah,
about all the weird
they
stuff that happened to you.
supported a write-in candidate
Yeah,
instead of me. This is my own Democratic Party here.
they did the same thing in Buffalo, man. You know what I mean? But actually, you're now the thing is that right. The lady in Buffalo, right? She had some people behind her, and props to that. But you have a very tough battle to climb, and you did a lot of it by, I know you had some team with you, but a lot of it was kind of you were kind of more isolated and alone in your fight, and respect for holding that line out there as in terms of the injustices that happened to yourself, right? A lot of people stand with you on this issue or that issue, but when you're the personal victim, you got to fight that on your own. So besides not endorsing you for, I think the state leader or something was trying to down your campaign or something.
Yeah, the Kentucky Democratic Party leadership
Okay, so there's other.
has hated me since early 2014. And I first became involved with the Kentucky Democratic Party for the first time ever. I lived in Kentucky since 1982. I first got interested in the party and running for things at the end of 2013. And like a few months after I started running for the U.S. House in January 2014, um, they started trying to chop me up.
You really have that everyman, type of quality to your campaign, which I really, very endearing. I hope that people go check out if you're, once again, Geoff Young is definitely a cool candidate, my choice of the year. We don't see everything the same, which is, but, I'm really a big fan of his. I think his integrity is very strong, and I think he's definitely worth checking out. Now we're going to learn from him today, right? Some of the, I told you about how he ran for House of Representatives, and you can look him up for yourself. Geoff Young, right? Yeah, Young. Look at how the state actually tried, or his own party tried to cut his knees off. They wouldn't endorse him for his own race, right? Even after he won the elected thing. How did you manage to win the primary despite all this, interference from state establishment members?
Okay, so in 2022, um, I had run for the U.S. House of Representatives for the nomination, Democratic nomination in 2014, 2016, 2018, and 2020. And I filed, maybe a dozen lawsuits over that time period. Uh, so in 2022, they couldn't find any wealthy, famous, well-known Democrats to run against me. I wore them out. So all they could find was like I don't know, 31-year-old high school science teacher. from in the district, and he didn't have any money. I thought they would funnel huge amounts of money into his campaign, but they didn't. So he was kind of on his own, and they took out a billboard in downtown Lexington, Kentucky, that said "Abolish the CIA."
Yeah.
And that got a lot of attention. And the fact that I've been running, well, let's see, 2022, I've been running for 8 years.
And you know what? Just so you
Uh,
know, there was actually a big. Just I know Jeff's not talking about it here, but that was a lot of personal sacrifice. He really believes in this cause so much. He actually drained his own retirement account to buy that billboard ad to really try to push for this. And you know what? Little people like us that don't get the funding from these corporations and stuff, we are oftentimes, that makes someone's great, right? Yeah, like people that have to sacrifice. That's the division between number one and number two. So um, I respect that ad that you took out, and as a victim of war, a generational victim of war, I really appreciate your strong hold and your consistent stance over years. It was cool to see you in other movements, right, that we've been working with that are anti-war as well. So you've been consistent on that front. I'm really thankful for people like yourself that won't quit and that will keep fighting the good fight. I don't mean to keep brown nosing you. Yeah, look, once again, we do have differences. This is not just, but once again, he is my candidate of the year for 2022, and the very first that we've ever had on this channel. I'm sorry. So hopefully, right, I really brought him on here today because there may be other insurgent candidates and other party, right, Republicans, Democrats, anything, to find out the tools they use. They may have used, they may have challenged your petition signatures. Maybe we could talk about more about like the lawsuit, how we know a lot of the parties that are in control assign their own judges. They have relationships. It's very difficult to make something like that work. I can't wait to find out more of, but what you accomplished in this field and how you fought back against the BS.
okay, well, I'm not an attorney. Never spent a day in law school. But starting around 2014, I have been forced to learn about the law, especially election law. I've been forced to do that because uh, both parties rig their own primaries. The purpose of a primary is to allow the uh, voters in that party. So we have closed primaries in Kentucky. So if you're a Democrat, you can only vote in the Democratic primary, and vice versa with the Republicans. Um, it's supposed to allow the voters to decide who they want to be their nominee against uh, the other party in the general election.
Okay.
So when they rig it, they are attacking democracy itself.
What are some of the tools they use to rig the elections?
Um, they try to shut you up
Okay.
and not allow you to talk to other Democrats, in my case. Um, so let me think. Now, 2014 was the first time. So they had their favored candidate, who was, pretty much equally unknown as I was. Um, and they would, uh, she wouldn't debate, and the party didn't care, they kind of supported that. Um, but then they started kicking me out of party meetings in my own county, Lexington, Fayette County, Kentucky. It's kind of in the middle of the state, a little bit toward the east. And
So how'd they kick you out? Like the leadership of the party would start, like, can you be a little more specific about that?
well, they have monthly meetings of the county executive committee.
Okay.
And I would walk in and they'd say, they'd call the meeting to order, and somebody would make a motion. I move that we expel Geoff Young because he was disruptive in the past, or he uh,
Yeah.
sued us in the past, or whatever, for whatever excuse. I was just sitting there, and they'd take this vote, and then they say, if you don't leave, we're going to call the police and have you arrested for trespassing.
We have
So I
documented,
consider
yeah.
that primary rigging, primary election rigging, when one candidate, my opponent, can talk to the party faithful and ask for their support and tell them about their platform and ask for any kind of help. The other one gets kicked out.
Down here
It's
we have these things called the Democratic Party clubs. I don't know if it's like that where you are.
yeah, we
Okay.
have them.
Would it be possible for you to maybe, and some of the clubs are bigger and more influential than others and have support from the establishment, the leadership, and controlling certain districts. So yeah,
Yeah.
they do actually control. Another way that they use to control is they use the petitions, right? The petitioning process to try to increase the numbers, or they challenge your petition signatures. How did things work in Kentucky? Is that a similar thing, or maybe you guys are not using this
Well,
similar system? Yeah.
in Kentucky, they favor the established parties, the Republican Democratic parties. So all you need to get on the ballot in a primary is your own signature and two others, witnessed by a notary public. So you need three signatures to get on the ballot in Kentucky for any office, governor, local state representative, whatever.
Well, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Um, well, it's not cool for third parties at all. They need, for U.S. House, they need like 400 signatures.
Oh, I didn't know that.
To run for governor, a third party or independent needs 5,000 signatures, but they don't all have to be notarized.
Okay.
But so what? It's not easy to get 1,000 signatures on a petition. That takes a lot of time. So we've got a Libertarian Party in Kentucky, and they run into this almost every year, where they have to go out and get hundreds of signatures. So the system is rigged that way in favor of the two big parties.
Okay. What
But
led to you actually taking them on in court, though? Right, you have a court case with party leadership. What did they do to you that ended up you putting a case on them?
well, I would keep going to meetings and they would keep calling the police. This happened like, I don't know, 15 times over the past 9 years. And then I would go to the state Kentucky Democratic Party meetings in Frankfurt. They've got a big headquarters building there. So in 2019, there were 4 candidates running for governor of Kentucky. With myself, there was the current governor, Andy Beshear, and there were 2 other establishment Democrats running. So 4 of us. And then in their last state party meeting before the primary in May of 2019, 4 years ago, they invited the 3 other ones to speak, for a rally or whatever, talk about their platform, ask for support at their last meeting before the primary. And I was not invited. I didn't even know about it until like a day before. And somebody told me, oh yeah, we're having our meeting tomorrow. So I went there, tried to get in. They said, well, we passed a policy a year ago that if you walk into this building, we call the sheriff, sheriff's office.
And I just want to, just so you know, now me and Geoff hasn't, I say we haven't worked that much together, but we have actually, to a certain extent, we've done a bunch of discussion panels on many issues. Not only that, but other people that I know, such as the elected chair party of Washington State, Mark Mixon, I think has been in contact with you. Also, so has Brian from something called an American Union. And all of us and all the people that I've worked with have found Geoff an easy person to work with. Someone who's reasonable, someone who's nice. And if you look at look, some people you might see that person seems like a proud person. Hey, I'm like that. I'm outspoken. I'm hard. I go at it. So if you say Ed maybe pissed off somebody, I gotta say, you know what? Maybe I could see that. You look at Geoff the way, right? He's in multiple conversations with me, right? Yeah, he's someone who won't take a lie, which I appreciate, but he's not a difficult person. He's not aggressive energy type of person.
Yeah,
You know
I'm
what I mean?
not
Yo, just that's what's
disruptive.
up. So go ahead. Yeah,
All
I
right,
just
so
want to
the
vouch for
things
you on
I
that.
would do
Go ahead.
in the last several years, I would make a sign. So in 2018, we had a warmonger Democrat running for the U.S. House, and my district, there were six Democrats running. She was one of them. She had millions of dollars from all over the country. Amy McGrath. And later, 2 years later, she ran for Senate against Mitch McConnell. Anyway, in 2018, she was running for the U.S. House, and I made a sign that said Amy McGrath is a war criminal because she was a lieutenant colonel who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I thought, my reasoning was, she was high enough up, a lieutenant colonel in the Marines, to have had the time and the opportunity to find out that it was a war of aggression, illegal war waged by the United States against Iraq. And she never did that. So I called her a war criminal for failing to um, do anything to stop this illegal war against the people of Iraq. Uh, Instead, she got in a plane and dropped bombs on them.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of
Well,
a
holding people
marginal
accountable, that's like the
call.
greatest crime to these people. Holding people
What?
accountable, holding a people accountable, that's like the greatest crime to these people. So that's
Yeah.
why, you're facing this persecution. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
would take a sign, and she would be having a rally or speaking to a group of Democrats, and I'd stand in the back of the room, get my sign out, and hold it up there for an hour. Stand there holding it. Amy McGrath is a war criminal,
If you have footage of that
and
stuff, I'd love to share that on my channel. I think that's actually that's some real activism right there. That's kind of cool. Yeah,
yeah, well, the kind
appreciate
of
that.
thing that um, the LaRouche people do in New York City.
That's
Uh,
okay. Some
Diane
yeah.
Sayre and her friends or supporters do that kind of
I
thing.
just texted
But
Diane Sayre's people Diane Sayre yesterday. She just talked back to me, which is cool. I like
uh-huh,
Diane Sayre's too. I
yeah,
respect a lot of their work for real. We do have
right,
some issues about their choosing of Nick Braun and Jackson Hinkle, but otherwise, I still got love for them, for real. They say a lot
right,
of truth
right.
and stuff like that. I don't know about the
I
economic
don't agree
stuff.
with anybody about
Yeah,
every single issue. Nobody, no two people agree on
but
everything.
they've been working for
So
decades, for more than just not just
yeah,
last year. They've been working for
that's right. I
decades, and
know.
they've been consistent on fighting war. You got to give it to them. So respect to them and
Yeah.
love out to the Larouchians. Don't throw me in the trash for Nick Brana and Jackson Hinkle. Otherwise, we could hang out. All right? Yeah.
Right.
All
So,
right. Yeah.
so in 2018, I guess the same year, I was in a room with, there was a Democratic oriented group, and I had my sign, and Amy McGrath was the keynote speaker. So she talked for a couple minutes, didn't say anything, and I got up and started trying to unfold my sign. And there was a retired police officer sitting at my table in this conference room. And he jumped up and grabbed the sign out of my hand. And I guess he threw it on the floor. And then he grabbed me from behind and started pushing me out of the room. And I was yelling, "You're a police officer. That is assault. That is
Yeah.
assault. That is assault." He grabs me out
Did anybody
and
record that?
hauls
Do you
me
have
out of
that?
the room.
Do you have that on recording? Did anybody film that?
I don't think so.
Yo, I'm in there too, man. Yo, that's crazy, man. Yeah, sometimes people go down and sacrifice, and you don't even get to see it. Yeah, but
I
yeah, I
didn't get,
believe it. Yeah, I
I
believe it.
didn't
You're
say a
not the type
word. I
to
just stood up
take it.
silently, and my plan was to stand on the side of the room, not approach Amy McGrath at the podium, to stand on the side of the room with my sign, "Amy McGrath is a war criminal," for, 30
Okay.
minutes or an hour or, however long I felt like standing there, not say a word. But I was hauled out, and, you know,
So if I could go back to the lawsuit, so the lawsuit is they're
it,
taking them on for the discriminatory behavior.
yeah, for basically for primary election rigging.
Okay. Now,
using a variety of techniques.
okay,
Um,
if there's other
so this
candidates that
year, in my run for governor,
yeah,
they just went wild. Um,
other insurgent candidates might be thinking about taking the party to court themselves. So is there like maybe some certain statute or
yeah,
maybe some certain process that you would like recommend? And maybe they should go for a jury trial versus. I don't know if that's available. Maybe can they take that to a jury trial? Is this a civic matter?
yeah,
Civil
sure.
civil court? Yeah, let us know.
Any citizen can file a lawsuit, but you need to know what to expect. Um, so here's the statute. Um,
And you're suing the DNC, or you're suing the party leaders, or who are you suing?
Not the DNC, the KDP, Kentucky Democratic Party. I
Okay.
also sued the Republican Party of Kentucky, the RPK, in 2020. I
Okay.
was a Republican in 2020, and they did exactly the same election rigging. So this statute says, uh, okay, the governing authority of any political party shall have no power to nominate any candidate for any elective office or to provide any method of nominating candidates for any elective office other than by a primary as provided in this section, in this chapter. And I interpreted that to mean that any party that has primaries, Republican and Democratic, usually they're the only ones, may not rig them. It talks about the governing authority of the political party. It's supposed to be the voters who decide who the nominee is,
Yeah.
and not the insiders, the top donors, the government officials, the party officials. They're not supposed to make that choice for the voters.
Here in New York State, it's so clear that this is happening because the state legislator will get in, then their assistant or their chief of staff like follows them into office. So you can literally see the succession line going down. You can see the direct path of how it
Yeah.
worked. What about
Right.
over in Kentucky?
So
ahead.
a candidate like me or like any anti-establishment candidate, you're not going to be part of anybody's plans. When you run for something, the establishment has their own plans, their own ideas about what must happen, and you're not part of it. Right? They don't want anybody messing with their plans, right?
Yeah.
The governorship of Kentucky,
Or the
the
control.
Democrats usually plan it out like
Yeah.
20 years in advance. Who's going to succeed who's going to be next?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Absolutely. This is a huge
So
problem.
I would sue them for violating this law, and then I would file a ballot challenge. So this year I did that against the incumbent governor, Andy Beshear, Democrat. Um, uh, so let's see. That law says that a bona fide candidate is someone who is seeking the nomination or election according to law.
Okay.
And if you're not seeking the election according to law or the nomination, you're not a bona fide candidate, and the judge, circuit court judge, has to take your name off the ballot, has to order the Kentucky Board of Elections to remove your name from the ballot.
Okay.
If it's too late to do that, they have to not count the person's votes.
Okay.
So that's what I did this year. I think I filed it, April 11th. The primary was a month later.
Okay.
And
So here in New York, one thing is that a lot of the judges are assigned by political parties, right? Yeah, the county committee, or like the local leadership actually gets to assign the judges, and even the Republicans and Democrats to a certain extent, because they're in court every day, they get to know each other. And even though, right, the governor might change, the DA might not change, or the DA's staff might not change, so they're all working together in this kind of like cooked system, right, where
yeah,
you are the outsider, you still get shut out.
Right.
So the chances for you to get justice under this system is or be successful with these lawsuits is quite difficult. Sometimes you get lucky with the roll of the dice. How is your lawsuits gone? Or, honestly,
Well,
I don't
all the
expect justice
judges.
because those are the people
Okay,
controlling
so
power.
I think in Kentucky, the vast majority, let's say 80%
Yeah.
of the judges are Democrats. Um, roughly, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe in the rural counties, it's more like half. But in Lexington, Louisville, Northern Kentucky, the urban areas, heavily Democratic judges. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't They don't care. They're there to protect the establishment.
Absolutely.
So in 2020, I filed a ballot challenge against Andy Barr, the U.S. Congressman, incumbent. I was a Republican that year, and I got a Democratic judge here in Fayette County. Actually, a friend of mine, or used to be, but he threw the case exactly the same way the Republican judge in Scott County threw my ballot challenge against Amy McGrath, actually twice. In 2018 and 2020, I filed ballot challenges against her. It doesn't matter what party the judge is, they are there to protect the system.
Yeah. They all have relationships. Absolutely. It's hugely problematic. We have the second longest incarcerated man in New York State history fighting for exoneration. We can't get either party to address right the wrongful conviction. It's not just you, but you're the one out there really breaking the mold in terms of taking on the system, right? A lot of people give up or they see this disgusting stuff, and you'll even hear a lot of these celebrity people like Yang saying like, "Oh, we saw how corrupted it was, and what are they doing about it?" They're really not doing something about it. You're still fighting, and I really appreciate that. Now,
Yeah.
just so you know,
So it
yeah.
took me a few years,
So this
maybe
right here,
5, 6, 7 years, to learn all of the tricks that the defense attorneys and the judges play. Their main trick is they file a motion to dismiss,
yeah,
and those should almost never be granted. If you're at all competent about putting together your lawsuit, your complaint, and you explain, this is exactly what they did. This is when they did it. This is why it's illegal. This is why, the other candidate, the establishment candidate, should be stricken from the ballot.
okay. So now I'm gonna,
It's not too
okay,
hard to put together a good case, but they've always been dismissed.
okay. So a
And
couple
that
things I
means
want,
the judges
yeah.
are corrupt.
One of the things I want to just show over here is like this is a list of all the voters in our local area, and
Okay.
by assigning people to the county committee, we're trying to get the judges put in. Now, also before we started this conversation, be offline, we talked about RFK Jr. running for president,
Okay.
which is semi cool, right? We're going to talk about that as well and your thoughts on that. But before we talk about RFK Jr., I want to say right now, a lot of people look at AOC. Yeah, she's pretty. I mean, yo, AOC, what's up, call her brother. I mean, I am, man. But let's be real, right? They think she's a fighter. She doesn't have that pathway of showing like you do. Even RFK to me does not have your right. You fought the Democrats and the Republicans 2018, 2020. You have this long track record of fighting, fighting, fighting. Even when things look against you, even when you lose, you'll keep fighting. People say we want to elect a fighter. Holy crap, Geoff Young to me is the fighter. For like, yo, prove me wrong. Like, go ahead. So we could talk about
Well,
RFK, and I know you're
either
excited
that
about
or
them,
I'm a
blah blah blah, right?
fool.
Cornell West, blah blah blah, right? I know you probably don't want to badmouth them, but I'm saying right now, who's the real fighter? Show me the fight. What's up? Like, really, really,
Hmm.
to me, that's why you're my candidate of the year, and I have so much because you keep fighting. So
Okay,
with
so
that
let me
perspective,
just
how can you
let,
support? I mean, you
let,
gotta support somebody, I guess. But RFK Jr. to me,
well,
we're
well, let before we go to
go ahead.
RFK,
Yeah, go ahead.
let me just summarize what I had to learn over the past 9 years,
Thank you.
from
Sorry to interrupt.
2014 to 2023, in all these court cases. Um, what I had to learn was every, all of these well-known cases, some of them U.S. Supreme Court cases, some of them Kentucky Supreme Court cases, that say in order to dismiss a case, um, the judge has to show that it's basically a kind of stupid or insane case, like I am accusing Amy McGrath of witchcraft or something. Uh, it has to be that crazy. Otherwise, you can't just dismiss a case before discovery. Um, so I had to learn how to show that all of these dismissal orders, and then they'd sanction me. That's how I lost all this money, over $100,000 over the last 9 years. Uh, Never paid a lawyer. I didn't lose money that way, but they fined me simply for filing a lawsuit.
Who did that? The
That's
state or
completely
the
illegal.
Democratic Party, the political parties? Who fined you?
The judge, in every case, the judge or the Court of Appeals, or in one case, the Kentucky Supreme Court fined me because I was so persistent. I would never go away. So they fined me for frivolous reasons, not according to law. That's what my money has been spent on, paying these crooked lawyers, lying lawyers, to lie.
One organization I'm going to point you towards. I don't know if they'll help. I pray that
So,
they
but
do.
just to
Yeah.
conclude, learn about how to tear up a motion to dismiss. I've become incredibly good at taking a motion to dismiss and shredding it using, a response, a legal document. I respond and say, this is, this motion to dismiss is frivolous, and the lawyer who's bringing it should be disbarred because it included 14 lies,
Yeah.
and three of them on page two. I went through it and said, here are all the lies they're telling, and the motion to dismiss should be thrown out, and I should be allowed to conduct discovery.
You know, um, I've been in this game for 25 years, and the fact of the
Yeah.
matter is that your case to me is historically significant. Are there, you're taking things to the state level, to the federal level, which is awesome. Are there, I know there's a group called whistleblower.org that my friend Stephen Lee says that he's getting some help, right? He did some whistleblowing on corruption in the police department here in New York City. Maybe they'd help you, maybe not. I know that I'm connected. Is anybody helping you with your case? Just seems so significant. You know what I mean? Like with the how they keep doing it again and again.
No,
Um,
no, nobody's helped me in 9 years. That's
I'm gonna
fine.
try to help you find
I'm
some.
unlike unlike the defense attorneys, unlike these crooked candidates that I'm suing. I
Yeah,
am able to learn from my experience.
I hope
They
that
don't learn
maybe.
anything. They never
Yeah,
learn a thing. They commit the same violations over and over again.
I'm applying for some grants to maybe even cover your story. You know what I mean? I think that there should be a documentary made about it. This is historic to
Yeah, I
me. It's
want
historically
John
significant.
Grisham to write a novel about this kind of.
You know, you why take the fiction when the facts is better? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? That's how I see it. So this is a real historical
You
precedent,
could write a
and
nonfiction book.
yeah, I'm very happy to provide a perspective for other people that I'm sure, right? You're not the only insurgent candidate that's dealing with the BS. They develop these strategies over a long period of time to screw over many people. Thank you so
Right.
much for your with the dismissals. Yeah, I could see them doing that. That's pretty low, but thanks for sharing that so much. Yeah.
Well, and
What's
then and then recently their motions to dismiss have said, well, Mr. Young has been called a frivolous litigant, has been, by these six previous judges, so he must still be one. So you have to throw his current case out too.
your message
It,
caught on though because you won
it,
your
it
primary?
feeds on itself.
Yeah.
You get like half a dozen corrupt judges, and no other judge feels the need to be honest after that. They'll just quote the previous cases.
Yeah. And they protect each other, and then then
Yeah,
someone gets
they,
left
they
out.
all
Yeah. It's
stand up for each other. Anyway,
yeah.
you want to talk about RFK Jr.?
Let's okay, so let's talk about it. Yeah, so the presidential elections come up 2024. There'll be a lot more people getting politically involved, getting aware, and hopefully we can point those people towards yourself. I'm so glad I got to meet you in 22. So when there's the upswell, I could I do plan on working with you in the future. You were like I said before, and I'm not the only one. A lot of people have worked with Geoff Young, so you might read these reports and see Geoff Young. Oh, he's supposedly difficult to work with. Hey, guess what? I got a lot of friends that like working with Geoff Young. That's a fact. So, yeah. So, what do you think about RFK? Or what do you think about just the presidential candidates in general?
Well, in general, I think every president since 1945, when Franklin Roosevelt died, has been a war criminal, an imperialist, an aggressor, mass murderer. Even Jimmy Carter. I mean, maybe maybe he killed the fewest, um, but even Jimmy Carter was. I mean, he enabled Indonesia, for example, to massacre 250,000 people in East Timor. He could have stopped it. He for whatever reason, dragged his feet, and 250,000 people were murdered by the Indonesian government. So every president has um, had basically the same foreign policy. The United States must be number one militarily, economically. We must not allow anybody to challenge us. Same foreign policy from 1946 to the present day. Um, so along comes this year RFK Jr. and starts talking like an actual person who wants to use diplomacy and doesn't believe in um, trying to dominate the world militarily. He seems like a somewhat genuine anti-imperialist. And I view him as the best major party candidate in my lifetime. And I'm about to turn 67 later this month.
Or is RFK declared as a Democrat or Republican?
What?
Did RFK declare that he's running under a party?
Democrat, of
I
course.
didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
no,
Okay.
no, his entire family have been Democrats.
Okay.
Uh,
That's cool. All right.
uh,
What are your thoughts about you have any thoughts about any of the other candidates? What do you think Trump's chances of winning are, or you think Biden's going to win it again, or what do you think? You think RFK's got a good shot? What do you?
well, uh, so, okay, it seems to me that the only three people who have a chance of winning the nomination, just it's more than a year away. Um, at this point, are Biden, Trump, and RFK Jr. There are a whole bunch of people circling around waiting for an opening, but it's okay. So Trump and Biden are war criminals, proven over. So Trump, for 4 years, he was a war criminal. He failed to stop any of our ongoing illegal wars of aggression anywhere in the world, and he made most of them worse. And so people say, "Oh, Trump didn't start any war." Well, he inherited 7 illegal wars or so from Obama. He's also a war criminal. Um, and Biden has made it all worse. So RFK Jr.'s two most likely opponents are both war criminals and unfit for any position of power.
What about like there's other people like to tell you the truth, I know some Republicans here, and I feel like that Trump is really strongly winning it. But there's also Ron DeSantis. You
Yeah,
also have what's the other ones
well,
that are possibly getting thrown up? Marion Williamson, Cornel West. What do you think about those?
all right. Well, I like
Yeah.
Cornel West,
Okay.
but he's running as a Green, and Green Party third parties can't win. At this point in American history, the system is entirely rigged against third parties and independents.
I'd like to. I also have been a member of the third parties for over 20 years, and I just want to back that up. If you look at the numbers, I think the Green Party has about 400,000 installed members at your best bet, at the best count, and
Hmm.
the Democratic Party is the largest. I think at over 44 mil. I think the Republicans are close to 40 mil.
Yeah.
It's more than 100 to 1 odds. Like people don't really know the numbers. They haven't had the time or experience of actually being in the field. You want hey, I'm not mad at, I'm ready to go for 100 to 1 odds, but you got to be a freaking super warrior. Like if you just a casual and you ain't doing no work and you talking about just sit back down. You know what I mean?
Well,
Anyway,
my
sorry about
first
that. Go ahead.
first campaign for office ever was 2012, and I was a Green.
Yeah.
I was a Green from 2009 to 2013, and I had no chance at all. I was running for state representative from my little part of Lexington against an entrenched far right wing Christian right Republican. And we, of course, and there was an independent running. Democrats didn't even run anybody against this guy.
Okay.
So as a Green, an independent, and the incumbent Republican. And he never debated anyone. He didn't have to. He had tons of money. And so, yeah, third parties, independents cannot win. I mean, maybe at the local level they can.
Now, some of the reasons why I feel like third-party independent candidates struggle so much, or even insurgent candidates, is because of the machine. A lot of times here in New York City, I don't know how it is in Kentucky, but they actually have these relationships with these not-for-profit organizations. Now, these not-for-profit organizations are technically, because they're government funded, not supposed to do political work. Let's be
Right.
real, folks. Let's be 100% real. Who these people have their job depending on who's in that office. You know what I mean? And whether the department gets cut or not is reliant. They're getting involved with the political process 100%, and that forms a machine that
Hmm.
locks out incumbents because most average people don't vote. So the people that are getting the pocketing the money, right? Yeah, they understand that they got something to lose, and they keep honest actors like yourself, despite being consistent, going out there, fighting the
Hmm.
good fight. Remember, they're pocketing the money and they're using that money to squash your message, to
Yeah.
disregard you, to shut you up, right? To pay off those
Right.
judges. So once again, you're a super warrior in this. I've met other candidates who are like it's their first time out and they're like, I gotta win. I'm like, let me tell you my story about my man Geoff Young. Fought like 4 or 5, like he's finally won his primary. Like that's what do you have to say to other candidates that are in that fight, right? Yeah, because I'm sure you lost heart during the time, or it was a struggle. What gave you the strength to keep pushing through and actually win? What do you think was the deal maker for you to actually win your primary, despite all the years of
Well,
suppression?
yeah. I think I just wore out the Democrats in 2022. Um, it could
Yeah,
easily have gone the other way. It was like 52 to 48% that I won by. That's a pretty narrow margin
yeah,
against this 31-year-old science teacher. Um,
it's gonna be a lot hard to
I
do the
don't know.
governorship
Look
though.
up your state's election
Yeah,
laws. If they have a law like the one I talked about that says if a party has primaries, it may not rig them. Look for a law like that and try to get them kicked off the ballot. I don't know. I mean, uh, you may lose the first 3 or 4 cases, but I would go after the lawyers and the judge.
yeah,
If you learn enough to know what a judge is allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, that may take you a couple of years. Start suing the judges, or reporting them to the bar association and saying that this judge needs to be removed. We have a judicial conduct commission in Kentucky that deals with corrupt judges,
yeah.
or they claim to.
You're also starting
Start
a paper
filing
trail on them.
complaints with them. But you
Yeah.
need to be really sure that you're right. You can't just sue a judge because you disagree with something. You have to show why it was unlawful.
You're starting a paper trail. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah. Keep
future
every
candidates that
piece
face
of
the same
paper.
problems will not be left with nothing in their hands. They'll have your testimony and your evidence, and that's
Right.
what we really need. And please don't let Georgia's sacrifice go for nothing. Other people need to start stepping up too. I think this
Yeah.
is a very
So
good
they
example.
they have motion hours. They somebody submit the defense submits a motion to dismiss, and they record them.
Okay.
So you can go and pay $25 and get a recording, a CD with that motion hour, and you can, I write down what everybody said, unofficial transcript, and I show, well, here's where this lawyer was lying, and here's where the judge failed to provide any facts to back up his conclusion. You have to use their words against them.
If they might try to get you thrown off the ballot too. I hope that you do qualify for the governorship. And by the way, do you have a
Nobody's
website?
tried
Yeah,
yet.
that's good. Do you have a website where people can find out more about other events you got coming up and maybe send
Yeah,
some donations your way?
yeah.
I know
It's Young
you're
for
set. Yeah,
Kentucky.
Young for
Young
Kentucky.
for Kentucky. YOUNG, the number 4, KY.com. And
Okay.
I still have my primary governor uh, website up at
Yeah.
that link.
I was really personally, you know, it made me feel a little twinge in my heart when I knew that you had taken out your retirement savings to pay for that billboard ad.
Pay for these fines. Yeah, the billboard was cost, about
Yeah,
what, 18, $19,000 for the
from your own
billboard for
personal
five
money, because
months.
honestly, the press is not. Honestly, I think that your message is very appealing to most people, but you're just not being covered, so you can't really get the support. Even though, and you had to really battle to really get to. You still won your primary after multiple years of suppression. Hopefully, things can really start to come through for you. Here in New York, I'll do what I can to increase knowledge about your campaign. Once again, I'm a big supporter, and you are my first candidate of the year, and my first actress of the year is still my favorite, Theo Chino. So I'm still providing ongoing help for his project, Rep My Block, which you see repeatedly. So I look forward to, you've been battling a long time. Now you have the ally who's also going to. I've been 25 years activist. I'm here for another
Wow.
25 years. I'm ready to support you for 25 years. So they can. So if they get tired, they're in danger because I'm ready to keep helping you, man. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah. Thanks again for
Well,
your
I
consistent
appreciate
fight.
that, Ed, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, hey man, once again, your role model, Young for KY. Make sure you check that out, especially if you're a candidate, an insurgent candidate. I reach out to them. That's my special, reaching out to candidates that are on the edges. So they're all, hopefully we can get all you guys together and make something real happen. Yeah. Thanks again.
All right.
Anything else you want to say before I? Oh, let me just check the chat before I go. Probably not getting a lot of watchers here. This is kind of niche, right? This is for people that are really serious about this political stuff. Oh, just so you know too, we had a discussion last night. What is it called? RCV, um, ranked choice voting over here, right?
Yeah.
New York has actually had its second cycle of ranked choice voting. I'm not saying it's all bad. It's a cool tool, right? But the thing is that it's not the panacea. It's not the magic box that people like thought it would be or hoped it would be.
Yeah.
In the second election cycle that we've done it for the second time, people had the chance to figure out how to use RCV to try to push issues. In fact, it's gone the other way. People are afraid to talk about issues because they don't want to alienate, right, their opponent's friends. So they're even more wishy-washy than ever. You know what I mean? So
Well, the cowardice of the typical politician is almost infinite.
yeah, yeah. All right,
You
so
mentioned AOC.
she looks right. They like her because she sounds like a fighter, but you're the real deal, man. You're like the Mike Tyson of this for real, man. Yeah, you're a legendary fighter. You don't
Well,
quit.
well, final
Yeah,
words then. You asked. I think the most important issue is stopping our imperialism, stopping the military-industrial complex, stopping all our wars, bringing all our troops home, abolishing the CIA. I mean, it's foreign policy that's going to destroy this country.
and I just want to say one thing to the people that are. Some people might feel like Jeff's words are too extreme. And I get that, but I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this, right? Yeah. The fact of the matter is that if you want things to get to here, right? Yeah, through resistance, you're gonna have to push past that point. You need some people like Jeff here to make sure the military industrial. Maybe you don't believe in his extreme, but let's be real. There's no force really taking on the military industrial complex. Let's be real, right? Yeah, it's just kind of operating on its own. We need some factors to bring it. Even if you don't agree with him, at least Jeff would be a balancing force in this. You know what I mean? And right, so even if you don't, right, if you think that he's too far, you need someone who's going to go a little bit past to really reach that point in the middle. So I'm with Geoff, obviously, right? Yeah, but even for the people that can't go that far, I want you to try to look at, you know, if he got in, that would be a force of balance. That's how I see it. So that's the
Well,
worst.
in
That can happen.
2022, I think I was literally the only major party candidate. There were third party candidates talking for peace, talking against imperialism, ending our wars. I was the only
Tulsi, where
candidate
are
for
you
the
at?
U.S. House.
Tulsi,
Well, she decided to take 2 years off. Okay, that's fine. I
she
can
endorsed a whole
understand that
ton of
too.
candidates, a lot of them. Where was the love for Geoff Young? Yo, whatever. I mean, you know, I respect for service to the country. I respect her standing for Bernie. Like that was cool and all that. You know what I mean? But and she got her click, and you know, hopefully one day she comes around. If she ever watches this, if you're in the Tulsi squad, tell her about Geoff Young. He's
Yeah.
definitely super special. That's just
Well,
my
I'd be
opinion.
happy to have a cordial conversation with her or anyone else.
All right.
I'm
Easy to
not
work with, man. Yeah, Jeff's easy to work with
I'm
for
not going
me.
to yell at her over the phone or over Zoom.
I'm waiting. I
I
would
try
watch
to
that.
be reasonable
I don't
whenever
watch Tulsi like
possible.
I do no more, but if she had you on, I'd watch.
Okay, I'd be happy to talk with her.
All right.
I'd
Anything
love
else?
that.
Anything else before we go?
Oh, great time today.
Thanks again, Geoff. Yeah, you're an inspiration. Once
All
again, thank
right.
you so much for your work and thank you for coming on today. Yeah, just gonna hit